Hey everyone, it's Mark here from Mark's Trains and welcome to another how-to video. So today we'll be showing you how to convert a Gaugemaster motorised track cleaning vehicle. This is similar to the blue Tomix version, otherwise known as Tomix. However, this one's been done up with the network rail livery, a nice yellow body, etc. So to start with, the vacuum fan is already inside the body. So we shall remove these and keep these to the side for later on. So underneath here you've got two bogies spring loaded. When you remove these you have to be very careful that the springs don't ping out. Trust me, I've done them before, they do like pinging out. So firstly what we need to do is get our fingernails underneath this little cover, which is where you place IPA or any other track cleaning fluids. And in the bottom here we have a small weight, so that can go with the rest of the stuff we don't need. Now we only need to remove one of the bogies on this to be able to convert this to DCC. This end is just purely a weight, this end you have the motor underneath there sitting through and all the circuitry. So we'll start by removing the bogie. I'm keeping hold of the side of the bogie to make sure that it doesn't spring out. Now these screws can be a little bit stiff. Once you've got it going, just pull it out and twist gently. There's a nice long screw there, captures on that thread. And gently place this on the side here. Right, so now that's done, you just gently put a fingernail in the side, near the motor housing either side, and work it all the way down. And then the top cover comes off. So on the top you have a rotating switch, so that gives you the option of a cleaning track power, which to be honest we don't really use. You have an on setting and an off setting, so this is mostly for DC operation. The reason why we have a clean setting switch on here is so that some track cleaners, some track layouts have a electronic cleaning device which sends a high frequency pulse down the rails. So to counteract that you'll need some various components on there so that the motor doesn't blow up. So right, so that's not needed. So we take the weight off, we'll place these over here out of the way, and then what you're left with, as you can see here, is a motor. This has been modified, so I will show you the Tomix version if I can. So that's the motor for the Tomix version, which slots in to place there, and the circuit board slides underneath the motor to engage with the brushes and goes down as a complete assembly. It is a bit fiddly, but it fits. So as you can see, that's the Tomix version. It's a direct contact with brushes. An issue with this is that it can sometimes give you poor performance, so we'll leave that to the side. This one is obviously much better by design because you have hardwired circuit board directly to the motor, although the soldering on the motor needs more to be desired. So as you can see, this spring contact's fallen out. This is for the switch. It's not really needed, but we'll leave it to the side. And our first task here is to snip these wires off. And here we have the circuit board. So I'll just show you the components that need to be removed on this now. So you have a bridge rectifier and a small capacitor. What we aim to do is chop out a section of this circuit board to give us enough space for the decoder to sit in. The components aren't needed because we're going to DCC. Also, this capacitor up here can be removed as well, along with the wires. We'll be fitting fresh wires onto this motor, which should just slide out like so. And there we have it. So in the end, the decoder, which in this case we're using a Lenz Silver Mini, will sit carefully in between these two weights, insulated. I'll just show you there so you can see better. So it will sit there insulated, and that's basically where the decoder will be placed. So we'll start by removing the solder from the motor, so we've got a fresh area to put on our wire. So tin the bit. I find it handy putting a pair of tweezers on the wire, and I'm just heating that up and putting that away. That can go in the scrap bin, and the same on the other side. Just a gentle bit of heat, making sure that the tip doesn't touch the plastic casing on the motor. So it doesn't really matter which way the motor goes back in, but I always like to do it in a logical order so that the numbering on the motor, the part number for the motor, sits on the hopper side. So that's positive, that's negative, left, right. That's the way it's going to be driving forwards. Obviously you want to be leading this area to wipe the track clean after you've sanded it or whatever with the grinding papers. So this will be the direction of travel, number one end, number two. So now that motor's sorted out, we don't need these spring contacts anymore. So I'm just going to gently pry these contacts off with my tweezers. And there we have just a plain plastic switch, which will sit there in the middle. So when this is reassembled, no matter what you do to the switch, turning it on and off, it'll actually not do anything on the circuit board. So in terms of the circuit board, I'm just going to support it with a pair of tweezers and remove the rest of this wire. And we'll start with a fresh piece of wire later on. So now our next stage is to remove the capacitor. It's probably best just to hold it by hand. Just gently remove the top capacitor. That's come out that end. That's come out the other end. So that capacitor is no longer needed. In the bin it goes. Just going to clean this solder up. Just get rid of it. Right, next task is to remove the SMD capacitor on the board. Now for this, it can be a bit tricky, so you need plenty of heat. Wiggle it, twist it slightly, as you can see. I'll show you closer. The capacitor is slightly twisted, so that's come off its pad partially. And do the same for the other side, using a gentle twisting action. It doesn't matter if anything comes off. So as you'll notice there, part of the pad from the capacitor is still on there. It's not being used, so I'm not worried about that. Just going to wipe that clean. It's a small amount of solder just for its flux, so it helps ease the components. And I'm going to heat up this bridge rectifier. And this can be a little bit trickier. So I've opted to bend the legs on this. We're not using this component anymore. It's going to go straight in the bin. So it doesn't matter if the legs are bent and destroyed. So that's one bridge rectifier out of the way. Clean these pads up, although it's not really necessary. I'm just going to tin this area here. A bit more solder on, just to get the flux so it runs. So you have a nice clean contact area. What sometimes happens is the copper or gold plating, whichever contact material they use on the circuit board, can corrode over time, oxidize. So that's the circuit board prepared, ready for use. So basically the contact side will sit upside down inside here. So the next stage now is to score out an area for the decoder. So you need probably about 10 mil. So as you can see, I'll bring it closer to the camera, the decoder will fit over this green area here. So I aim to trim right up to the edge of these pickup strips. And to do this, I will use this saw. Very carefully mark it up, move out of the way, and saw away. Obviously being careful of our fingers here, because these saws are quite sharp. they will slice your fingers very, very easily. So what I'll do is I'll pause the video at the moment, because I don't think you want to see me sitting there with a saw cutting away. So see me in a couple of minutes with the board prepared for you. Right, so we've managed to cut a small section of the circuit board from this, and that should give us enough space now to slot our decoder in. As you can see, plenty of space inside the area there. Gently pull that out. So now the next stage is to replace the piece of wire that we took off earlier. We could have reused the wire that was already there, I suppose, but I always like to ensure we've got some fresh quality wire for use. Alright, so I'm just going to tin the ends of this wire. Use these tweezers, I find them very, very handy for this purpose. And solder in place. So I'm going to go for about 1.5 inches of wire. That'll give us plenty of wiggle room. I'll keep the rest of this wire for another job later on. So I'm just going to take the insulation back on the other ends of the wires, tin them ready for soldering, and then attach them to the motor. Now I always use these tweezers. These locking tweezers are an excellent piece of kit. I always use these to hold motors in place, because motors are magnetic and so are soldering iron bits. So this makes life a little bit easier. And on we go. Nice, clean, solid joint. So we're now ready to place this back in to the body. What I do to make things nice and tidy is I twist it 4 times so that the wire sits down through this gap on the circuit board, and then make sure that the wire's pushed down snug so it's out of the way from the rest of the body, although saying that there's plenty of space there anyway. So I'm just going to take this back out again. So it's a nice perfect fit, the wire's the correct length, everything's sorted. So in terms of soldering the decoder then, we're going to use this area of the pad here for your right hand pickup, the red wire. This is for your left hand pickup, the black wire. Grey, orange for the motor. So I'm just going to tin the other 2 motor contacts. And this contact array in the middle here would have been for the switch contacts, which we're no longer using. So for the decoder, we need to snip the wires down to roughly about 1.5 inches. That should give us plenty of wire there for what we need to do. Let's separate the light wires from function outputs from the motor and the pickups. So then we'll strip back the insulation, tin the ends of the bare wire, and solder it onto our circuit board. Using the tweezers again to hold wire steady. Clean the tip of my bit, grease it up. Probably a bit too much solder on the back. So I'm going to work this way around. So the first wire to go on is red. and that will go nicely on the end here. Then next up is orange. The next one grey, and the last one black. So that's basically the circuit board ready to go back in, and then we have the three wires left for the lights, which I'll get on to in a minute. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Don't forget to put your plastic switch contact back in first. This helps to separate the decoder wires as well, so they don't chafe. Just move that out of the way a little bit. This can be a bit fiddly, but we'll get there. So, alright, so that's that in place now. So you probably heard me about lights, and you're probably thinking, hang on a minute, why am I fitting lights to a track cleaning machine? So as it stands now, you could in theory put the lead weight back on, insulate the decoder with insulating tape, and slide it into this pocket out of the way, place the cover on, you're good to go. What I like to do is I like to know that there's power running to my track cleaner when it's sitting on the siding. The main point about having a track cleaner is you're cleaning the track to make sure that trains can run. So if you get onto a dead spot and you're wondering why the track cleaner is not working, the fact that the light's not flashing indicates to you that there's no power on the track. So on mine, which I did a while ago, you'll see a small LED. So what I'll do is I'll drill a hole, fit an LED, and that will then give us an indication that the track machine is live. So I'm just going to carefully line up the centre on this and drill a 1.6mm hole. So I'm using an LED with a 1.6mm diffused lens. The LED, slide it through. Right, so that's almost there, just needs opening out a little bit, a small fraction. So I'm going to use a 1.7mm drill bit just to slightly enlarge the hole. And there we should have it. A quick test on the top. Ooh, obviously fits. So that fits in there perfectly, and you'll see it's slightly raised on the top there. So join us in the next stage and I'll show you how to wire the lights in.